What's going on, everybody? It is your boy Zamboni. I'm a musician and astrologer, and it is time to talk about the astrology of the week ahead. This is a big one this week. It is frustration week, I might call it. Because it's all opposition and tension this week. So, this is actually probably a good time for us to think into ways that oppositional dynamics can be put toward something useful. There's something about the tension of that can, in fact, potentiate improved outcomes, or something that is more beautiful or more helpful or stronger than it was before. This is the way that like sexual reproduction works, for example, right? You've got the two opposite things, and then they come together and they make a new thing, and that thing is ideally stronger than the generation before it was. And this is like how things continue for a while, right? So there are ways to use the opposing tension. Maybe what you need to do is you need to put up some kind of boundary, and so you get a piece of rope and you attach it to something at two ends and then pull those apart, and that tension creates the boundary that you need, because it's just like a velvet rope situation. You don't need it you just need the idea of a boundary, and that's going to be enough for you. Or something like this, right? So tension of opposites is what we're doing this week. Let's talk about that a little bit. So we've got the main thing that's happening this week is Mars is moving from Virgo into Libra, and as soon as Mars gets it there into Libra, then we see an opposition to Saturn in Aries. So, so Mars moving into Libra, this is Mars moving into a place where Mars is deeply uncomfortable. Mars is as far away from home as possible there in Libra. Mars rules Aries, which is that's Mars's home spot, and this is an opposition to that place. So Mars is, if we think about Mars as being like the rage or the action principle, the one who wants to move things around, who wants to shape the world in his own image and this kind of thing, right? Then Libra is Venus's domicile. Venus is the one who wants to do cooperation and elegance and grace. I often think about Venus in Libra as like the hostess with the mostess, right? The one who is like taking care, who's looking out for the cookout, who is taking care of the whole cocktail party and making sure that everything is moving smoothly and that folks are feeling appreciated and that there's balance and harmony and equanimity in the whole situation, right? That's a Venus and Libra kind of situation. So now if we take Mars and put Mars into that cocktail party, then we can think about like the general at the event where all the nice folks are. You know what I mean? Like, bro, what are you doing with all of these knives? We are trying to chill in here. Why are you armed? Why are you strapped up right now? Can you chill? So there's a kind of incongruence there that is uncomfortable for Mars. And so I think about this as sometimes maybe being like a little bit passive aggressive or something like that, right? So using Venus's channels, using social channels to push on things and shape the world in one's own image, right? And so this looks like the kind of thing that is, it is not ready to push over, but it might prefer that you think that. Now, this is especially interesting in opposition to Saturn in Aries. Now, Aries is Mars's domicile, and so this is with reception. This opposition between them is with reception, so it's not as gear grindy as it could otherwise be. But so Mars and Saturn together, I often think of as like gas and brakes at the same time, you know what I mean? And so the idea there is that it is very frustrating. You're trying to go, but there's a big obstacle at the same time. Saturn in Aries is also pretty in a rush about things and pretty impatient about all this kind of stuff. The way that I'm doing this, by the way, is, figuring out who Mars is and how Mars is going to behave in this area of the zodiac, and then who Saturn is and how Saturn is going to behave in this area of the zodiac, and then put them into this kind of aspect relationship to one another, and then what happens, and then kind of tell a story about that. I teach that process, how to do that, in a course called Astrology from the Ground Up. So if you want to go to zambonifunk.com and learn how to do what I'm doing here, then you can do that there. You can also just get a reading if you just want me to do it for you. I'm happy to do that. zambonifunk.com is the place to do that. There's a bunch of cool stuff there. Check out the music. Check out the documentary film about me. There's a whole bunch of cool stuff. Check that out. So let's get back to it. So when we're looking at Mars and Saturn, it looks like it's super frustrating. It's so impatient. It wants to get something moving. It wants to get something started. These are in cardinal signs, but it can't quite do it. And there is an opposition. There's some kind of opposing, conflicting obstacle that gets in the way of things happening in some kind of way that would be fluid or efficient or something like that. Now, seeing that Mercury is still deeply retrograde at this point, we've still got another week of shenanigans as far as Mercury is concerned. So miscommunications, delays, deceit. Maybe it was a miscommunication. Maybe someone lied. Hard to say. Think about transportation difficulties, traffic jams, road rage. Looks like it wants to be a real big deal this week. All this kind of stuff, right? And so on one level, it's like there is so much tension just happening all the time because folks are later than they thought they were going to be, or there's been some miscommunications that have gotten under someone's skin that isn't even relevant to the situation at hand, and then that turns into something that wants to break or something like that, right? So there's lots of that. Or we could also look at miscommunications that are the crux of the problem and that are the obstacle in some kind of way. I thought we were going to do it this way, but it turns out you thought we were going to do it that way, and these things are not the same, and so we can't understand what's actually happening here. All of that sort of stuff looks like it's really big deal this week. And so, it looks like there's plenty of rush this week, but slowing down is almost always the thing that you have to do with Mercury retrograde. You're just not going to get the thing in the time frame that you want it to happen in. And so what else can you do? What can you do? Can you do something on the side that is still productive? Can you do something that is just fun and delightful? One of the things that I like to think about with Mercury retrograde is, can you stop and smell the roses? Maybe you are delayed by the side of the road and there's nothing you can do about it, but there's some nice roses over here, so I guess maybe I'll spend a little time smelling something sweet or something like this. And in fact, the sweet things are very sweet this week. One of the really nice things about this is that Venus has moved into Cancer, and so Venus in Cancer is just hanging out there with Jupiter. This is super benefic. Love to see how very delightful the Cancer things are in this moment, right? So eating good food, feeling nourished, especially feeling nourished in a space where we are together in some kind of way. Even though these motherfuckers drive me crazy sometimes, I still love them so much. That kind of vibe wants to show up in the home, family, loving, nurturing kind of space. So in whatever way we can cultivate that dynamic, it looks like it can be good medicine for the deep opposition that is running through not only Mars and Saturn, but also we're going to see a full moon this week. And so full moon by its nature is the moon opposite to the sun. The moon is in Aquarius, and so that's going to be ruled by that Saturn. So it's just, so all the tension is taking place here. There's so much deep tension that is in opposite directions. I think about that as being can't live with them, can't live without them kind of situation. You know what I mean? Like, can't see eye to eye, but then also like have to be in contact with each other. And so how are we going to navigate all of that? It looks like tides are really high, tensions run really high this week. And so it's going to be a good thing to make sure that you've eaten some food. Don't be out here hangry. Don't let your partner be out here hangry either. One of the things that I say in readings a fair amount is like, I see that big fights are taking place. How often are you eating together or feeding each other? Like, do you remember that you like each other? Can you maybe get back to that place where it's like, oh yeah, we can break bread. We can still be in love together, even though we have these kinds of disagreements. How can we reach this kind of wholeness, even though we at times disagree? Check out Zamboni Phone.